Just warming the knees up a little bit. The idea of tonight's workout is I'm going to squat, but you guys know I've been recovering from a bit of a knee injury to the MCL. It's feeling a little bit better. It's been around a month now, so I've been using box squats as a bit of a rehab tool. But what I'm going to try and do tonight is have a go at just squatting without a box, working on getting depth back again and trying to squat pain free. I don't know what weight I'm going to go up to, I genuinely don't. One, my leg strength is going to be down a little bit, and two, I'm just trying to restore a bit of range of motion. If I can squat parallel-ish without pain, I'm good to go. So I'm just doing these just to warm up. So those of you who've seen some of my previous rehab videos, you'll have seen me rant and rave about them. They have a very similar feeling to a leg extension. So I just get a heavy band behind my knee and I let my heel point up in the air, and I just simply concentrate on pushing my heel into the ground. In the process of doing so, you'll feel all of this lovely bit of musculature start flexing. Doesn't look like much, but it's very, I won't say challenging, but it really warms the quads up, warms the knees up nicely, but without any knee pain. It feels like the contraction of a leg extension. You know, when you fully extend on a leg extension, it feels very similar to that if you're positioned properly. But as I said, the only difference is you won't necessarily get that kind of sharp, jagged knee pain. So I just do it until it feels kind of pumped. Swap legs, get a few more reps. But I genuinely don't know what I'm going to go up to today. I'm going to do sets of 5 and just play it by ear. I really don't. It might be 180, 200, 220, 260, 300, probably not 300, but you get the idea. I don't necessarily have a weight goal. I'm just going to find a weight that I can squat and get depth-ish without too much pain. And rebuild the confidence a little bit. I'm going to stick to sets of 5. Just simply so, one, it'll allow me to use a little bit of weight, but two, just to rebuild the confidence and kind of make sure the form doesn't break down. Because when you do slightly higher rep range, that kind of 10 rep range, 12 rep range, 15 rep range, it's very easy for your form to break down. So 5 will be enough reps for me to kind of get a bit of muscle hypertrophy, but it's also a rep range where you don't necessarily break your form down and tire out too much, unless you're going for super maximal poundages, which I'm not going to be doing today. Those of you who follow me regularly know I'm not a bad squatter. My max squat I've ever done is 400 kilos for a single. I've done 380 for a triple, I believe. Double or triple, something like that. So I'm not a bad squatter. And again, if you look at my channel relatively regularly, you'll have seen me squat well over 300 kilos quite regularly. So today isn't about kind of feeding my ego, trying to break world records. It's just simply waking the body up and reminding itself what it used to do. And I'd say that to anyone. When it comes to injuries, leave your ego at the door and think about the kind of long-term plan. We get that sort of instant gratification of lifting weights, but ultimately, in the process of doing so, you might set back your rehabilitation a little bit. So, you know, if you need to back off for a few workouts, don't be afraid to back off for a few workouts. Just going to loosen up the shoulders a little bit. I did a very heavy chest workout the other day, so my shoulders and chest, my pecs are feeling very, very tight. I'm not a huge proponent of stretching ordinarily, but in these circumstances, probably worth it. Got a bit of a band here as well. Gonna do some dislocators. A little bit looser. As I said, I'm not normally a massive proponent of stretching, but you guys may have seen I'd come off holiday relatively recently. I did train a few times while I was over there, but I went straight back into training very heavy, and hopefully you've seen the video. I ended up doing a 5x5 bench with 220 kilos, which is the most volume I've ever done. But to say that I have got DOMs at the moment is an understatement. My pecs and front delts are ridiculously, you'd think I'd never trained before. So when you are squatting, it is very important that you are able to get into position. I'm a reasonably big guy, but ordinarily I'm reasonably mobile. Because if you haven't got that bar in the right position, particularly me at the moment who's kind of trying to recover from an injury, it can just throw you off. So now that my shoulders are a little bit looser, I'll be able to get underneath the bar properly. Warm-ups are going pretty well. 4-plate felt okay. I've had a look at a couple of the videos. I haven't watched them all because I'm just trying to train. But the depth feels okay. I think I'm hitting around parallel. But you know, when you haven't squatted for a while, oh my goodness. My glutes, my hamstrings, my butt. Yeah, my butt is my glutes. But you know, oh, can feel everything firing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go up to 220 and just see how 220 feels. I may hang around 220. I may go a little heavier, I don't know. What I have to keep on remembering is that I'm just trying to rehab myself at the moment. So sometimes I have to put young man Mark back in a box. But equally, I'm being sensible. I'm attempting to be sensible. But so far it's been pretty pain-free. I'm aware of my knee. But sometimes you just get that anyway. It kind of comes with the territory. I've been training for 3 decades. So, you know, if something isn't hurting, then you haven't been training hard. That's what I've come to feel anyway. So, yeah, I'm going to try 220, see how that feels, and then just play it by ear, really. It's coming. It's coming. Still feels okay in terms of the knee. The only thing I can say is, to be honest with you, I've just lost strength. I'm not as strong as I was in the squat. So that was 240 for 5. I'm going to try 260. I am going to try it. At the moment, I'm only using neoprene knee sleeves as well, because I don't want to use wraps, to be perfectly honest. Just simply because I want to know what I can do without getting too much spring out of the wraps, because sometimes you know how it goes if you're a lifter, and if you know how to really wrap a knee, you can probably get another 10, 15, 20 kilos out of it. But because my knees aren't really hurting, I'm just weak, relatively weak, you know what I mean. I want to try the 260. I'm going to try and get a set of 5 with the 260, and then I'll be satisfied for today. So 260 is going to be my top set. Yeah.
All right, that was pretty heavy. I'm going to go back on what I said. It isn't going to be my last set. And this is sometimes pride before a fall, maybe. I'm going to do 6 plates again. It felt heavy. It felt too heavy. And I'm going to punish my body for that. Sorry. I just need to wake my body up. I need to wake my body up. Even though it moved okay and the depth was okay. It didn't hurt. That's the main thing. It didn't hurt. I'm just not as strong as I was on them. I know I'm a pretty hard taskmaster, but I have very high standards and very high expectations of myself. And I should be able to squat 260. And I did squat 260, but I'm going to do it again just to prove a point to myself. Because this is just about building confidence as well. So I'm going to have a little rest and then get it again. I rented it last time. This time I'm going to have the deeds to the property and I'm going to own it. Change your game plan again. I'm going to do 5 by 5. Sometimes you just need to test yourself a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to do 5 by 5. As I said, sometimes do as I say, not as I do. I'm an experienced trainer. I know what I can do, I know what I'm capable of. I've been mollycoddling this injury for too long now. And as I said, excuses are done. And I just have to accept the fact that I've lost strength on the squat. The knee, I can feel it, but it feels okay. It's just my strength has gone down dramatically on the squat now. So, as I said, I'm going to test my body, test my legs, wake them up, and make them do what they're meant to do. Okay, that's the workout done. Overall, very successful. I'm pretty pleased. It was one of those workouts where you kind of have to dig a little deeper. And it's one of those ones where you have to have a bit of a conversation with yourself. Hold on, we'll come closer to the camera. In my head, as I said, I think I was making excuses for myself. And I felt that during those squats. The injury is feeling a lot better. I'm not saying it's perfect. We never squat pain-free, none of us do. None of us bench press pain-free, none of us shoulder press pain-free. Every single one of you guys out there, I know, if you're a serious lifter or you've been in the game for a while, you've always got an ache, a pain, an owie, something that's hindering you a little bit. And I think after 30 years of training, for some reason I was expecting all of the aches and pains that I ever have to just disappear. So I got into my squats, I got up to that 220, and 220 was okay. I slowed it down a little bit, then went to 240, that was okay. But then I genuinely had to have like a conversation with myself when I got to the 260. Don't mollycoddle it, don't be soft. This isn't injury, this isn't pain, this is, you've just lost a bit of strength. Get over it. And you know, you have to have a gut check sometimes. Even me as an experienced trainer of a pretty high level, you know, I've been training for almost 31 years now, been PTing for well over 20 years. I've lifted as much weight as most people would probably want to lift. But even so, I had to turn around and have that kind of gut check and conversation with myself. And my advice would be do the same to yourselves here and there. Get out of your comfort zone. You know, I think particularly as if you're a good personal trainer, if you're someone that does online coaching, if you are someone that, you know, does one-to-one personal training and something, how can you tell people what to do if you haven't done it yourself? How can you genuinely be honest with yourself and push your clients if you don't push yourself and get out of your comfort zone yourself? And that's exactly what I did today. So overall, I'm pretty pleased. I'm a pretty hard taskmaster, as you can see. I sound like I'm on a downer. I'm not by any means. Having 260 on my back is the first time I've had 260 on my back for a month, 5 weeks, something like that. But as I said, when you're used to squatting 300 kilos plus very regularly, going back to 260 and finding it quite hard was a bit off-putting. But as I said, it's just check the ego at the door. 260, you know, you can move it. It felt heavy, but it wasn't heavy because of an injury. It was heavy just because I've lost a bit of strength. And I just had to face that and come to that realization. So I call it putting miles in a tank for the future now. So I've had a look at a couple of the videos, not all of them, but a couple of them. And my squat depth, I was pleased with. Those of you who follow me regularly, you know I'm a little over 6'2", just under 6'3". In centimeters, I'm 1.89 centimeters. And I think like 190 is 6'3", so I'm about 6'2.5"-ish. I've got quite long legs, so my dimensions aren't really made for squatting. But even so, I managed to get down. I also kind of do a semi-high bar squat, which I suppose is relatively unusual for a taller lifter, but it works for me. Low bar squat has never felt comfortable for me. Even though I've got a ridiculously strong lower back, I've got a very, very, very dominant posterior chain. My lower back, my glutes, my hams are very strong. But I've always preferred to stay a little more high with the bar. As I said, it's not like a full high bar, but it's certainly not a low bar. And also, if you guys see me when I squat, I've got relatively good mobility for someone that's over 130 kilos. So I'm able to hold my hands reasonably close, because I know, generally speaking, the larger you get, the kind of wider you have to have your hands. But because I've always done my best to maintain a level of mobility, I am able to keep my hands relatively close. But as I said, overall, I have to be pleased with what I've done today. Now, in terms of the rehabilitation process, if you haven't seen some of my previous videos, please go and check them out. And sometimes, as I said, do what I say, not what I do. Don't try this at home, kids. My pride did get pricked a little today, so I wouldn't necessarily advise people who are coming back from an injury to do what I did today. Now, when I say 260, some of you guys might say, oh wow, that's a really big weight. And I'm not saying it arrogantly. You guys, if you know me, I don't mean it like that. I've got zero ego when it comes to lifting. We're all lifting, we're just at all different strength levels. Do it relative to yourself. Remember, my max that I've ever done is 400. This year, the most I've done is 380. 380 or 390. In recent times, I'd hit 360-ish. So 360, 370. I think I did 360 in a chain. So probably about 370. And that was within the last couple of months. So my squat strength is not bad. So this is all relative to my personal strength. So please don't think, oh, I need to be squatting 260 and, if I'm not squatting 260, then I'm weak. I don't mean it like that. I mean it relative to you. So if you're a 140 squatter, do not be afraid to come in and just work on 80 kilos. And just rebuild the confidence. And that's what I was trying to do today. Even though I've squatted over the years, I've done probably tens of thousands of reps. When you have an injury, you are waiting for something to go. You are waiting for something to pop. And it's just the case of get over it, rebuild the confidence. You fell off the horse, now you need to get back on again. And that's what I was trying to do today. I was deliberately trying to get parallel or a little bit below parallel. Now, my marker for me that I know I've hit pretty good depth is when the inside of my arm, so when my tricep touches my quad, that's pretty good depth for me. I know then I've hit parallel or just below parallel, which I know some of you guys out there, you've got better dimensions than me for squatting and you can probably sit on your hamstrings. But for my height and for my dimensions, a little bit below parallel is cool for me. But also, what I'd also say to you guys is just squat to your dimensions. I think over the last few years, we've had so many internet experts and social media experts coming along, casting aspersions on people because, they don't hit depth or they don't hit their depth. Ultimately, you squat to your dimensions unless you are competing in powerlifting, and you have to, or strongman or whatever, and you have to hit a certain depth. If you find sitting on the floor, as the grass and all that kind of stuff painful and it just feels wrong, don't do it. Squat parallel. If you have to hover just over parallel, do so. I don't mean do quarter squats because that's just ridiculous. But if you can go halfway down or thereabouts, that's cool. Don't get too caught up in the kind of social media, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram experts, because I know in the past I've had people coming on like trolling me for my depth, and it's just like, dude, I'm pretty much 6'3", and I'm squatting 360 kilos in my back garden by myself. If I didn't squat ass to grass with 360, then big wow, I'm alive. who's going to take me to the hospital or pull that 360 off my back when it crushes me. So genuinely train for yourself. Don't train for other people. And as I said, just keep it positive, keep it moving, keep it blessed. I'm going off on a tangent as I always do, because I just love talking about training. But it is all about, or it should be all about, building a positive community. You guys know I've mentioned Paul Leonard on the channel recently, and I was plugging his book, Built by History and everything. So if you didn't see that video, please go and buy that book. It's a great book, and I bought it for £12 off Amazon. So it's not a big asking price. It's about 200 pages, and it's great. But like I'm friends with him on Instagram, and we DM each other quite a lot. And he is the epitome of everything that is right with social media nowadays, and we need more people like that. He's a very old school guy. He's probably about mid-50s-ish, and he uses the term physical culture, which is an old school term, and that's what training was all about, like physical culture. And it is just passing on the knowledge, passing on the expertise, and doing it with a smile on your face, not judging people, helping people, and that's what it should be about. Boosting the confidence of people around you when you're in the gym. Obviously they're in there to get things done, but if you've got a young kid in there who's maybe struggling, looks a bit lost, it doesn't hurt to take 2 minutes to say, have you tried doing a bit of bench press, and then maybe do some incline dumbbell press, and then do some flies, and you can just give them a routine like that. You've been training for years, but we were all beginners once upon a time. And just try not to forget that sometimes. And when we go on YouTube, when we go on Instagram, some of us, it's very easy to kind of pass those negative comments and whatever. Don't get me wrong, we all see stuff and it looks a bit mad, it looks a bit crazy, and we all have a bit of a laugh or whatever. But there's no need to go on the page and post hate. Ultimately, we are moving a weight from point A to point B, and we do it in lots of different ways. Some of us do it in conventional ways, some of us do it in unconventional ways. It ain't that serious. You've heard me say that on the channel before. Very few people love training more than I do. Very few people are more dedicated to training than I am. But ultimately, I can still stand back and say, it ain't that serious. My life doesn't depend on it. And if so-and-so doesn't squat to depth, or they round their back when they are deadlifting, or they don't quite touch their chest on a bench press or whatever, I'm not going to be that offended by it, and neither should you. And that kind of came with a bit of maturity. That came, when I kind of got into my 30s, I became a lot less serious about training. And I don't mean like I don't take it seriously, but what other people did stopped bothering me. And don't get me wrong, I'll gladly help anyone out, and that's why I do the channel, because I genuinely want to help people out. And I love training, and training has been absolutely wonderful for me. Again, you guys who know me and followed me for a while, as a younger man, I wasn't quite as zen as I am now, and quite as chilled as I am now. And training really, really, really just gave me that kind of self-discipline, and stopped that little monster that we sometimes get in the back of our head. And I'd come in and I'd just exercise and feel a lot better and a lot calmer and a lot more chilled. And I've done that, for almost 31 years. So, as I said, pass on the love, pass on the support to people. I forget exactly what Paul Leonard's words were, but he effectively said, he's got all this knowledge and he just wants to pass it on, be it through words, in his book, or be it in person, with his select crowd. And I couldn't agree with that more. Pass on the knowledge. Someone passed on the knowledge to you at some point, particularly if you're an older guy, an old school lifter. If you're like me, who's been doing it since the 1990s, I learnt through magazines, books, watching videos, DVDs, and also just by watching people in the gym. And if some people were kind enough, and I was very lucky, I had a group of older guys take me under their wing within the first couple of weeks in the gym, and they showed me the ropes. Wizzy, Louis and Charlie Brown, who I will always be thankful for. They took me under their wing, showed me the ropes, and I trained with them for about a year. Another guy, Phil Hughes, I trained with him for about 6 years. And when he took me under his wing, I was a teenager. He'd been training for 20 years. He's like 20 years older than me. But he passed on so much knowledge, and he showed me what it meant to train. And, you know, we just learn. And there were some things that I still do to this day. There are some things that I maybe dropped because it didn't work for me. But I learned a tremendous amount, and I learned those basics, and it was through that group of guys showing me the ropes. Because we can look in a magazine, we can look at books and things, but ultimately there are so many nuances to a deadlift, to a bench press and stuff. It isn't just a case of move the bar from there to there, and you know, you need to know about pulling your shoulder blades back. You need to know about your hand positioning. Are you going to use a false grip? Are you going to use a full grip? Do you touch your sternum? Are you taking it to your collarbone for a guillotine press? Whatever. You know, how much should you arch? Should you do it flat backed? Should you put your feet on the bench? You get the point I'm making. Magazines don't often tell you that, or you can't tell by just looking at a picture. We are blessed nowadays because we do have YouTube and, you know, Instagram and stuff. So there are some absolutely wonderful resources, but there is nothing like talking to a real life person. There really is. So anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox now. So if you are new to the channel, thank you for tuning in for the first time. If you like seeing a pretty good big guy lift some pretty big weights and then talk about it for way too long, I might be your new favourite channel. So to the rest of you, thank you as always for my regular subs. I am uploading, I've started doing premieres now because, you know, the views are down because YouTube hates me. I've started doing premieres now, so I'm seeing if that works a little bit. So you guys will hopefully get a notification, and I'll give you a couple of days notice that the video is going to be posted. So at the moment, I'm averaging 2 to 3 posts per week on YouTube, because you guys know I'm a full-time teacher and I'm a personal trainer. So editing all these videos and stuff does take a bit of time, and I don't have that much time, but I'm still trying to get 2 to 3 videos per week. So on that note, I'm going because I am about to personal train in about 10 minutes. So I've got to go and put away all those weights and then set up for my client. So you guys take care, train hard, have a good week, and I will speak to you soon.